I'm still hearing music.
Yeah,
But
where's that coming from?
well, I was playing some, but
Okay.
I click live, but it's going to take a couple of minutes.
Okay. Just let me know. I'm not going to hit any buttons.
Yeah, you don't have to hit any buttons. You're good.
Good.
Yeah, we just have to wait for them to come in, and they've been suppressing us a lot.
Yeah, I was going to
So
ask, but I figured I'd just sort of
mm,
maintain the field.
yeah, we have. It's interesting how this is unfolding.
Yeah.
Did I? Oh yeah, they're starting to come now. It's just going to take a couple of minutes.
Sure.
Where are you located?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm like the roaming gnome.
Oh, are you?
S- Yeah, I've been without a permanent home base since 2008. Partially, I was touring with sound instruments. I had me and the band were touring, and I've lived in 9 countries and 8 states.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you Australian?
No,
No.
no, my voice modulates, but I spent 3 months in Australia, 9 months in New Zealand, and my voice
Wow.
moves all over the place.
Where are you from originally?
Okay, so I have to do it this way. I was born in the suburbs of Chicago, specifically Elmhurst, but I have no memory of ever talking
Oh,
like
you were
that.
born in Elmhurst.
Yeah,
I spent a year in well, I was right on the corner. You know where Harlem and North is?
sure.
There's an old Sears building there.
Wow.
Old Sears store, and I worked for the home improvement division, and that was our uh, Midwest divisional headquarters and flagship office. And I went up there in '97. Yeah, the first time I saw snow. I mean, I love Chicago. The food is incredible in
Oh,
Chicago.
absolutely.
It's like
Yeah.
second to none as far as I'm concerned. You would know better though, because you've been all over the world. I've only been around the country and in Mexico.
Well, it's interesting how sometimes, the lens that you come in with
Mm.
determines what you're drawn to. And so for me, I really found a resonance with Morgan, and I reached out to her a while back. We had similar stories, experiences, but coming in the way that I did, to me, food was art and it was sensual. And that wasn't going to fly in Chicago. It actually doesn't fly in a lot of the. I've come up with a new term for the US. I'm calling it the divided states of insanity for just a wee bit of time until something new shows up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, it's sort of, it just brings up that there's an agenda of divisiveness, and can we do something, if we're aware of it, then can we make other choices? So
Mm.
it's not negating it, it's not avoiding it, it's not judging it, but it does call out, the ridiculousness of the fact that, you go up in an airplane, there's no lines in the States in the first place. And now we've got red and blue showing
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
Right. Let me go ahead and turn this off.
yeah. Borders are
Yeah,
BS.
exactly.
Yeah, I find it. So we got quite a few people in here. Somebody said that you have a Scottish bit of a Scottish. She was explaining that she's lived in 9 countries, I think, something like that, and that you pick up stuff. I guess you're.
So, I came in backwards, okay? And I came in knowing that I was born into an inverted reality in 1957, so way ahead of the curve. My physical form, though, was not where my primary resonance was not in my body until recently. It's been a huge endeavor to bring me in. So I was able to mimic voices when I
Mm,
was younger, and then around 2002, there were aspects of me that came in, and when they came in with their voice. And so the first fragment that came in was a huge part of my experience was from the fairy realm,
mm,
and absolutely wanted nothing to do with being human. And I had to negotiate with this aspect of me. And I made promises regarding maintaining my connection to all realms of creation, bringing the purity of the expression back in. And the one thing that she absolutely was, there was an absolute, you have to bring my voice in. And at that point, I sounded like someone living in one city in Ireland that spoke Gaelic And to me, Gaelic was the remnants of the fairy language.
Hmm.
And after that, I just kept opening. And then more recently, I've discovered that one of my if I want to use that term, for incarnating again here was to assist with clearing the distortion in the mother line. And so I have an affinity with the Aeon Sophia and her experience of terror, ripping herself out of the pleroma and falling. And through that, I discovered I had no idea, other than the name, who this being was. And this ginormous being of light that would transmit through other feminine aspects had always been around. But Sophia was not really the one that I related to until a mentor came in and said, I created this soundscape, and it was the expression of Sophia, and it was, and I sharing that, Todd. I mean, the soundscape was available in October 2019, and I had to become the embodied expression of it, because that's the piece to me that's missing. I mean, consciousness is beautiful, but if we're not remembering, as in remembering, and bringing it into the physical, we really can't manifest and become the paradigm bringers. It's beyond bridging. A lot of us were bridgers, and now it's like, no, we're bringing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game on.
Game on. Exactly.
So you've known Morgan a while, it sounds like. The hero's journey. You mentioned, which I think a lot of your sisters in particular can relate to, which is how you just put it. You have that intuitive, that feminine intuitive, and then, that you kind of had a knowing, it sounds like. Did your human have a rough time?
Really rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, really rough. And of course, I'll take responsibility for neglect. I mean, there was a huge amount of negligence and neglect. However, I did choose a family lineage that was going to be unrelenting in its ability to not provide love, support. So you could, I'm not looking at not using some of the trigger words. Rough ride in. Definitely decided at the age of 5 that I was not safe, secure, stable. Home didn't exist. Love wasn't real. And my best friends were non-physical beings. That's going to set up a pretty interesting ride through your younger years and then teenage years. And, and because I saw and knew the truth, there was no way for it to be shared. And I got into big trouble. I mean, I got into arguments with my Sunday school. I channeled Jesus and this big giant angel called Michael. I called him Big Blue. I was wondering where people like me were. So again, it's going to fortify this sense of I don't belong, and home, where is it? And it would push me further out into the field so that I really had a great mastery of being a field, not just being in the field. I created fields, but I spent most of my life clearing energy, and I was a badass. I mean, I was like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I came in with skills. However, that doesn't ever allow you to relax into your physical expression. I ended up with a hypervigilant nervous system and attracted in a lot of people that relied upon my strength energetically with no reciprocity. A lot of distrust, and also highly, highly masculine. The essence of my being was not really, it was there, it was out there, it was deeply buried, and the excavation would require a lot. in as an oracle, and that's not at all like a psychic. Oracles are very different in how they perceive and how they access energy. And for me now, Todd, the big push is to become a fully embodied oracle. And I'm still at it.
We all are still at it.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I like where this is all going, this show and everything.
Yeah.
I saw something last night, a video on a platform, and in this type of community, the lady does really good work. I think she does. I don't watch a lot of it, but her name's Gigi Young, and I tune in now and then. Some people mentioned her, but she was talking about what are these aspects, and she was explaining. I'm not saying this is the gospel truth, but
Mm-hmm.
it's certainly thought provoking that these aspects are us, which I do agree with, to different degrees, and that they're basically everything's meant to do what you're talking about, what you're doing, which is, what did you say? Relaxing into the body and basically being all that you are in those fields that you created, but here actually in the flesh and able to do the same thing, at least potentially. Have you?
Yeah.
Well,
To me, it's like being a kaleidoscope. I came in very kaleidoscopic. So I could switch lenses. They weren't all aligned. So my primary sense was home was somewhere else,
mhm.
very connected to what people call fifth dimensional, had no clue what they were talking about, knew that I could change lenses. I
Mm.
could literally move through time and space, but I spiraled. I was never linear. To me, time was spiral. I was moving up, moving down, reweaving the tapestry of creation, being the orchestrator of an orchestration of creation, and always listening. Constant communication, like kirtan, call and response, call and response.
Mm.
Now, if coming into the human form requires embodying and engaging with an identity that's never been formed or acknowledged, that's going to bring up a lot of places where the terror can hide and where the misunderstanding and being misunderstood, will take up residence until the alchemy. To me, I was always an alchemist.
Mm.
And alchemy is just two knowns creating a third unknown. So it was sound, light, geometry, language were the tools. And I misunderstood a lot of 3D because it didn't make sense to me. And there was a lot of sense that I have to wait for people to show up. I have to wait for people. And I can be really direct and intense. I have a lot of energy, very dynamic. But I found that when people started leaving the dogmatic institutions and they drifted over to metaphysics, they brought the distortion with them, and it became the ministry of misinformation.
Mm.
And you had to get really good at being a colander and letting everything pass through, but be able to grab the nuggets of gold. Otherwise, we stay trapped in this dualistic polarity of I'm for and against, I'm for that, I'm against
Mhm.
that. Whereas for me, it's life has always been a trinitized expression.
Hmm.
And I kept wondering what happened to the Trinity. Because if you can get to three, you can get to infinity.
True.
And so this whole and it's what it sounded like to me, was that constant edgy push pull. And of course, the polarity and the duality would include, well, everything, masculine, feminine, um, all aspects of what we call the known reality. Well, the known reality was contrived, and there was a consensus reality too. So all these overlays, and just at a time in which there was a sense that something extraordinary might happen, which we would call 2012,
Mm.
all of a sudden in 2008, it all shifted. So what I found is that I got used to point out the elephant or the herd of elephants in the room. And without a resonance of feeling stable, safe, and secure, my human expression never took that well. So my energy field would implode and explode regularly. And I did not have the emotional stability until recently. And it took uncoiling and unraveling every aspect of being human. Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that happen for someone like you? I mean, like, yeah, I really get what you're saying. I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this.
Yeah.
But like, I guess you had to own your human or face your human, or so were there certain things that you kind of alluded to the general template, I guess, with what you were attracting as a result of the imbalance.
Right.
Was there human, human-esque experiences that was there anything that really stood out, like D-Day? Like how you just went, okay, this is not going away. I'm going to have to do something else and jump into the human. I mean, how did that work?
Well, having a conversation with all these different beings, at some point, Todd, I started noticing that the people around me that were channels didn't know who they were channeling. And I didn't know who these other beings were, that they were imposters. But the minute I showed up in their field, their true identity would show up. So for me, it was like an investigative reporter with a lot of whistleblowing tendencies and the ability to suss out distortion. The interesting thing is that if someone has, is a trans channel or a conduit and is bringing an energy through under the guise of, if the cover's blown, then the person opening up that field and exposing them will come under attack. The person will be used to attack me.
Right.
And in that moment, Todd, I have to make a choice. And my choice was always that I was committed to the mission. And this is not going to be a popular thing, but I literally had to let go of the mission. I said, there is no mission. There is nothing more valuable than the essence of life itself. And I had to recommit and create a place that had never been spoken about or overlaid. And I call it the heart of creation. And it's where everything returns to itself.
This is on point because you see it out there first with, I've been, blessed to be able to watch in a microscopic kind of way the general where there's been an evolution, like with the practitioners, but like the way they were, and I'm not judging anyone, I'm just observing, but like the way they were attached to what channel they had, or what spoke to them, or what modality, you know what I mean? And then that's kind of changed, as has the whole I think idea of a session being more about self-empowerment and less about healing somebody, but also the mission. Because I say it to myself all the time, everything is a potential program. And I love what you said, because oneness is oneness in so many ways, and what you just said is the mission and the prize is living itself. I mean, life itself, this moment, right? That's what you're saying.
And because oneness has been used by different programs, I can't even use that, because the way that I relate to language, it pulls the history of how it's used. So for me, it was like wholeness. The alchemical field is always looking for wholeness, and it requires chaos as well as creation, because they're married to each other. And when we split that apart, we became predictable. And predictability is a huge issue for a transhuman agenda.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest way to disrupt the algorithm, which you saw as I tried to get on this platform, is to be unpredictable, to be chaotic, means you cannot be controlled, manipulated, because you're not an algorithm.
That's right.
And then attempting to use, for me, social media is a shit show. It's very challenging for me because I feel the amygdala hijack immediately.
Can you explain that?
I'll see if I can, because that's the first time I've heard it fly out of my mouth like that. Exactly. That's sort of like, you know what you're saying? I never know what I'm saying. Everyone's like, are you excited about the interview? No, I don't know who's going to show up, because it's very kaleidoscopic. It's like a radio channel. We're tuning into you, the field, the people that are showing up, and then the larger space of creation. When I get on Facebook, I immediately feel a pinging right here. And a pulling on my field. And a sense, because I do still have an alarm system of sorts, that there are intruders.
Mm-hmm.
It used to sound like the robot from Lost in Space going, warning, Will Robinson, warning, warning, warning. Yeah, which was...
I hadn't thought about that show in ages.
Exactly. And then it went to the Jetsons, when George is on the treadmill and Astro put it was Rut-Row. And then it's the UPS truck in reverse. I have a lot of audio signals that tell me that there's a breach in my field or a perception that I'm being monitored or tracked.
Yeah.
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 But yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, what do you do with it? That's really what it comes down to, right? It's like, okay, I'm aware of it. I'm still at the effect of it. How can I alchemize it? Or 0 point? How do I alchemize it so that I am not at the effect of it? And I like using the term that I got from a group of the mother line of dragons that says unfuckable with.
I like that.
Yeah.
I love that name.
Yeah.
Unfuckable.
Yeah. Unfuck with. Well, I've heard it unfuckable with and unfuckwithable.
Unfuckwithable. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah. Unfuckwithable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how does somebody like you, I never assume anything, but it sounds like you came in this way and never went to sleep.
No, I was never asleep. I was separate though. So there was a chasm between the human expression and the part of me that remained in the field. Okay.
So in other words, somebody might say a normal person, right? Whatever that is, she's living in her own little world kind of thing.
I was living in a lot of worlds.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I had the ability to shapeshift. I had the ability to read rooms so that I would not be perceived. But I spent a lot of my life in the secret and hidden. I did a lot of intense work with people behind the scenes. And it was a bit like playing a role of white ops to black ops. And I had a lot of really challenging experiences with what we'll call the nefarious dark forces and black ops.
Okay.
A lot.
Yeah.
Which then perpetuates that story of you're not safe. Mm-hmm. You don't get to exist. And underneath everything, there were all these ways that you could sense it. But I started imagining that what I was waiting for was a permission slip to exist. And where's that going to come from? If that's not inside of you, it's a constant looking outside of yourself, which is a trap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's a trap.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the presentation of the distortion comes from the external, and then we look to the external to neutralize or nullify it or combat it. Yeah, I like the way you put that.
Well,
because
and then the fatigue is just, you're exhausted because how in the world could you possibly, it's like creation itself. It's like 90% of my time and energy and resources being used in combat mode. It
Mhm.
really is an adversarial program, and it includes anti-life programs.
Mhm.
And it's imbalancing
Mhm.
because it's like, and also that push is, there was um, a huge amount of intersecting programmings that were very convincing
Mhm.
in a way that said the human body and expression is never going to be safe. So you asked me how I got past that, and that was recent. It was through the beautiful mentoring of Laura McConnell during the time that Sophionic Symphony had been mastered but not come through with the track names or the title. She said something, and she said, well, what if we don't get to be safe? And she said it in a conversation, and it was like the 4th of July on steroids, and it just blew through my field. And it was like stable, secure. I eliminated safe, and my nervous system began to reset. And a lot of things factored in. I'd also been working with a metaphysician to fix the mechanics of my field because my field had never been aligned properly.
So this is interesting to me.
Hmm.
Someone like you, and there's many, many. I mean, in terms of not exactly, but I'm just saying that there's obviously, particularly women, there's a lot of them really, really connected and have been for a long time. And I noticed that they, like with yourself, like even what you present, I'm talking energetically. It's obvious that you're well connected. Let's just put it that way. And yet I guess, in other words, let's just say you went to a sister to have this alignment of your field put into put into place structurally. They reach out to someone to do that when they have this wherewithal, this awareness already within their field. It's interesting to me, um, that
I have to say
how do
that
you how
women
do you,
have not been my go-to.
oh really.
Yeah, no. And that's something where, I'm going to be real, REAL. And I also know that I'm coming up on a time where I'm not going to go back and speak about where I've been as a way that I got here. However, I do feel that it's important for me to bring it through my voice and to acknowledge that being overly ethereal was useful up until a point, but then I sort of missed the memo. And the memo of how to get in the body with all the distortion in my field, I would actually locate facilitators that would be useful to a point, and then they would pull the distortion through, which created more distrust of humans.
Mm,
So it was a loop. It kept looping. It was like a cul-de-sac.
yeah.
And you have to keep going deeper in to excavate what's true for me now, and what if their perception is just a projection because they don't have the ability to access what has never existed in creation before. I think a lot of us are here to create something entirely new.
I agree.
So
I
that
totally.
requires that reference point of, all of a sudden, if people are going back into the dogma to pull it forward, and
Hmm.
I could easily call myself a dogma buster, well, that's not going to work so well because they're going to go back into the dogma. And the liberation comes from alchemizing the dogma
Yeah.
from a space of, and you can fill in the blank because I think everyone's energetic. Their original codes of creation is what I agreed to assist in bringing back online. The
Hmm.
original codes of creation prior to the split.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that new that newness or that new earth, new whatever that you're talking about seems it would make sense to me. I mean, it comes from that remembering that you and those like you help others to trigger, and then add that to the experience, because the experience we've had as humans, as much as we wanted to leave sometimes, is the gold, isn't it? I mean, that's something that we didn't have before we came into this thing.
Well, what if the deception goes as far as the human expression is the access point to all of creation?
You think that? Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's the embodied expression gives you access. I'm going to play with how I say it because it comes out really through a non-human channel initially. I mean, I really am a cosmic conduit. So for me, it's like being a shooting star. You come into the cosmos, the universe. These are like membranes in galaxy. And then you get to Earth and you go, there's a lot of WTF moments. I mean, during the time that Oprah was having aha moments and having guests on her show, and people would say, oh, you should listen to this person, that person. I could not follow anyone. And I kept getting pushed to go deeper in, go deeper in, go deeper in. And I was directed to do ancestral trauma clearing on the land with an energy field that wasn't able to release it. So I did a tremendous amount of damage to myself. And the directive is, I don't want to spend time saying, was the directive, was it accurate, was it aligned? It doesn't matter. What it pointed to, Todd, is what if we're being asked to create a new template of indigenosity that includes our star codes, our galactic knowing? Yeah.
Almost like God, this is really good. I want to go back to what you said a minute ago because it was something I've thought of it in my head, but I've never actually discussed it with anybody on the show or even anywhere, I don't think. But what did you just say at the very end?
Let's see if I can do that.
Yeah, this is a 3D memory trying to come back.
It's that kaleidoscopic. There's a lot of different rooms sort of opening up, like chat rooms.
I remember now. Okay.
Okay.
So in essence, and I totally resonate with this. In essence, because again, I believe everything is a potential program, because if you accept it as a belief, as a end-all cure-all, I don't care what it is, you just don't know. And there's something about throwing down an absolute on the universe that will come hit you swat you in the ass. You know what I mean? But like, I think in essence, what you're saying is, I guess, how do I put this? We're all universes, and we're all goddess, and that each one of us individually and also collectively, is birthing a new species. Is that accurate as to what you were saying? Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is that English is not my first language. And for a long time, I just sat there and I thought, okay, and like, what is? It's like sound. I know myself as a nebula. Now, I could never share that with anyone, or I would have ended up in a rubber room. A lot of my choices were based on not safe to share, can't be visible, blah, blah, blah. And yet inside there was a sense of a chrysalis, a tiny flame in a very dark recess within. And I was protecting it. And it was sort of like the no matter what clause. No matter what, I'm going to protect this. No matter what, I'm going to protect this. And then in that goofy movie with Bruce Willis, The Fifth Element.
Oh, yeah.
And that orchestral blue being that was jelly-like, and she had the fifth element inside.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it was just like, well, when am I going to know when it's time to release it? And I'm like, well, that was my voice, but I had no idea what aspect of me was talking. And now I've got to create a relationship with the internal, more of the internalness. And you could frame it as, we're birthing a new paradigm, we're birthing a new planet, we're birthing a new species. Absolutely.
All of the above. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even, in other words, there are probably few people walking the earth today that could actually comprehend what that actually means. Like
Exactly.
it's not everything we've known. It's everything we've known, and in essence, everything we don't know, right?
Yeah.
About, you know what I mean? And so
So
that's
if we call that the mystery, which is
hmm,
an interesting word, and if we're going to use a word, and English is really not my favorite language. I feel more connected to my heart when I speak Spanish. And I used to speak a little bit of Quechua, but I lost that because I don't have Keros to speak with.
what
I can chant in Tibetan, and Sanskrit. However, they're not native. My sense is that language can be used as a way of retuning the field
yeah.
as it's vibrationally aligned. It can also be used to do the opposite.
Yes. Yeah. This is like Star Wars
Yeah, exactly.
Force, and
Yeah,
one side uses it in alignment, and one tries to manipulate the Force. And yet,
exactly.
in the bigger picture, there are no bad guys. It's
Right.
just like, you know, God, this is interesting. This is
Well, and
really,
the interesting thing is the looping right now feels like that never ending scene of Darth Vader saying, Luke, you are my son. And then it goes on episode, episode, episode,
mhm.
episode. And, I fell in love with young Anakin, that little kid in the metachlorides. But notice the theme. He's tested, he's
Yeah.
high level metachlorides, he's deemed special. And at that point, it's like, you're fucking over. You're
Hmm.
done. The minute that type of label and definition as you're special, now you're going to be pulled this way, that way, this way, that way. And you've got allegiances and alliances fighting over your talents and abilities.
Hmm.
That's a power struggle that's even beyond what people call power. So that's another word that I don't tend to use. If a word gets used multiple times to where people don't know what they're saying and they assume they understand each other, I don't use it.
Kind of like I love you.
Oh, love's a big one. Yeah, it's not a Hallmark after school special. This planet has a lot of different things going on. And for me, because I have offered high level alchemy sessions to people that have endured sexual abuse, cult programming, what was used to turn them was love.
Yeah.
The love of another, the love of a family, the love of an institution was used against them. So, what if it's something else? What if that's part of the paradigm shift? What if we can move beyond a four-letter word?
Well, everything is so paradoxical. Like what you said about, okay, so like on one hand, the language, regardless of what language you're speaking, and I agree with you, English probably isn't the best one to go to, but um, it's 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 distorted. But on the other hand, there seems to be, at least on this trip, there seems to be some serious relevance to what we say as our
Yes.
throat chakra expands, and as we come into this greater awareness and we start to combine the akashic we brought in with us with the experience post awakening, or however you want to
Mhm.
put it. So it is even thoughts, but I mean the words seem to really be impactful, almost like the unique creative tool in this incarnation or something. I don't know.
Well, it's also the bed. You've got sound training, and for me, I call what I do acoustic alchemy. I
Mm.
pulled it out of sound healing. I actually don't use the word healing. It's okay if
Agreed.
other people do,
Agreed. Yes.
but there's a misunderstanding. So if we're going to address the misinformation, misunderstanding, distortion, I want to find the most accurate and precise way to get there.
Mm.
And I've never understood why, because to me, why was me going up here into my mind. I also had to undo the shared space arrangements, and my overuse of the third eye. Because the third eye, as an energy center, has no relationship with the body.
None.
None.
Wow. Never
Yeah.
thought about that. I never thought about that, but
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So the easiest way to co-opt someone is to come in and infiltrate their third eye. Their higher aspects, our higher selves. There can be multiple higher selves. Not all of them are in alignment with your essence. Isn't it time for that level of awareness to come back online, so that those of us that are, if we call ourselves catalysts, awakeners, way showers, so that we're in this, and I don't like the term front line, because that still precludes a warlike. I'm back in the Lord of the Rings and I'm
True.
looking at Aragon, and it's,
Yeah.
you know.
True.
So what if it's a wave? To me, if it's acoustical, it's a wave. If this wave form, this frequency wave, has support to be the purest expression of itself, then it will find resonance wherever it is.
That's right. And it will be found
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, here's another thing that I mentioned it a few times on the show, that I go to, and that is, and I want to ask you, because of your vast experience and makeup, but I question everything that I hear. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it sounds like Father God and it's coming in. Because now you've explained this in a more literal sense. I've never really put the pieces together. But of course, I know about psytropic warfare or whatever. There is that, at a minimum, that possibility. And certainly there's evidence out there that occurs. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm getting to this place where it's like, and it sounds like this is what you're made of. It's like dominion and sovereignty doesn't just stop with what we see, touch, smell, feel. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I feel like I can only speak for myself. I'm moving into this space that I am that, and I am in command, should I have the balls to take it on, of all those things that come in my head. Mm-hmm. That none of them, that the alignment is here, yeah. That I carry it all. And these are tools and channels and connections and memories and training and skill. You know what I mean? Does that resonate with you? Do you run the show, or do you give it up for a particular aspect or particular energy complex collection of aspects that speaks to you?
Wow. Well, it's interesting because my whole body's vibrating. I'm probably about 500 degrees, which bodies can't be. So I know the field is getting really hot because we're burning. We're burning off the dross, the resonant, that which never's been spoken, the sense of, am I going to be okay to share this on a public platform, on a social media cyberspace platform? And right now there's a field that has been created around, you've done this with Soulogy. I don't know what you would say, but you have established a field of intelligence, a sentient intelligence around Soulogy that is an access point. It's an invitation for people to share their wisdom. And it also feels like a docking port to me. It's sort of like, I can't think of there's a few TV shows that were useful just in sparking the remembrance. It's sort of, it's the one after Star Wars or Star Trek. It didn't get that much of a following.
Oh, Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, and then there was one where it was a docking station at a Stargate opening, and the opening would come in and beams would come through.
Yeah, I think it was called Stargate 1 or something like that. I remember the image, though. I don't know if I got the name right. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is that all of those, there are kernels of truth in there. And there's
Mhm.
also a tremendous amount of programming,
Mhm.
military and psyops. I can taste psyops. I literally have cultivated my senses because of my direct relationship with it and having to pull it out of my field and having to find people that were mature enough. I think part of, I'm not going to say think, my sense, my direct experience is part of what we are asking to do is to mature,
Yes,
to embody and perhaps embody our higher self aspect.
I agree. Yes.
And from there, the knowing is within, and everything around us becomes, a reference of call and response, but not all of it is true. So you're
Hmm.
going to have to check in the moment. It's true for me
Hmm.
now, but we don't hang on to it. The allowance of it to be fluid is perhaps to me the true expression of the feminine that's been missing.
Yeah, that fluidity to me is I don't think, well, I mean, I know this is words and it's futile, to try to, but like God is not a goddess is not a noun. It's that fluidity. And it's what you just described. It's when you pull it all in and then you go out. You go forth in life, so put it.
And
This
so part of it is the kaleidoscopic is like rearranging itself, and you're moving out of these labyrinthian mazes.
mm,
Now, I could call that mind control and programming.
mm.
I could call it conditioning. The energetic reality is it's intended to be a labyrinth. Once you discover what it is, it no longer has a hold over you. Then you have to take action.
Then you're out on the other side, and yeah, this is
Yeah,
good. Yeah, I
yeah.
like this. This is a good conversation. Because one of the reasons that I kind of got to this point was well, we've had the privilege of speaking to some young people, as young as 9. We've heard stories from like Mary Rodwell and other people, parents and relatives of these young kids coming in. It could be, you know, in the womb up to say 20. We had an 18-year-old that was on a couple of weeks ago that was incredible. But when I asked them about, or I wouldn't even say it that way, one of the things I noticed about them is they don't serve a voice. They don't hear Mother Mary and Archangel Michael, and they don't. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because many of us have been brought to the party that way. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of talk about it. At some point you embody it, and then the voice becomes more singular. But what I've noticed about these young people is that it seems like to me. Now, I'm not saying that they don't get channels and they don't have visions and memories. What I'm saying is the way they operate. They're it's a singular thing. It's a feeling. It's an intuit. It's the wavelengths. It's all the things you're talking about. And I think that's very interesting, because there is so much, I don't say emphasis, but there's such a broadening impact of these young people who are less tainted, that are affecting the grid with, I would just have to say, a cleaner intelligence, or you know what I mean? I mean, it just seems like that some of that stuff is going away, so to speak, and we're like you just said, the labyrinth breaks, deconstructs, and then we're standing there going, what now? You know what I mean?
Well, exactly. And that's where, it's sort of like the mystery doesn't ask to be understood, it asks to be revealed. And it's what you do with that what
Mm,
now? What if, what now, what's next? Because it feels over and over again that you're standing at the edge of the known, and you have a sense that something is there through the abyss,
yeah.
and the willingness to cross that, I think, is different for everyone. I also get that, a lot of us, certainly my generation, came in with a lot of, and I'm going to use a really technical term, a lot of muck muck. They
Yeah.
came in with a lot of ancestral muck muck and a lot of coding, a lot of templates, and a lot of DNA, recessed DNA that wasn't going to allow the new to show up, but they were going to be in the throes of it and give birth to the next generation, and that's perpetuated. And whether I want to identify with indigo, rainbow, crystalline, certainly the templates are different.
Yeah.
And when a child comes in that people call crystalline, and someone looks and says, well, what does that mean? Because now the language is excluding this whole population. It's like they came in with no karmic residue.
Yeah.
Their vibration is crystalline, and they're going directly to source because they perceive themselves as connected to source. Well, how much different is that, and how much more space does that open up? The possibilities then become, they're less finite and they're more infinite.
Yeah, I mean, because there's less distortion coming in.
Yeah.
And even with the general collective, let's just say energetic field, there's been a lot of talk, especially over the last 2 to 3, 4 years. And people say it different ways. They say the quarantine's over, the reptilians have been pushed off the planet, or the archons are gone, or you know what I mean? But like, so if you have this well, for more aligned group of frequencies coming in, it would only make sense, however you want to tell the story, that it's a cleaner environment every day.
Yeah.
And here the labyrinth, I can't say that, Morgan makes fun of me. Labyrinth deconstruction. We're standing there. It's kind of like when people come on the show, and I've experienced myself, and you're like, yeah, I went through this and I went through that, and now for the last 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going, where's everybody at? And I think that's the whole point of what you're saying. It's like, you are that. So now that you have the information, go out and thrive, or go out and create.
Well, and the term responsibility, that's another dodgy one. And I do like using Australian terms because, you can feel the tonality of it. For me, it's the way it feels, the texture of it, the way it influences the field of creation. Everything to me is alchemy. So if I say the word dodgy, it's slippery. It's not quite in alignment. So what if we could bring it back into alignment? To me, a kaleidoscopic reality allows for multiple expressions and possibilities. And we have to cultivate the wisdom and responsibility to choose how we're going to align body, mind, heart.
The
that
kaleidoscope.
Next words. Yeah.
How are we going to align the kaleidoscope? And I love that metaphor as a metaphor, because if you look in a kaleidoscope, I mean, like we've like you said, came in with some karma. There's been a lot of work done, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, how can you bring the kaleidoscope into alignment if you're not recognizing part of the kaleidoscope, like our trauma or our belief systems, or you know what I mean? Like that's a good metaphor, because you can't. Well,
it's also multidimensional.
Of course.
And so for me, and this has been one of the toughest aspects, was I had a relationship with the Dark Mother from birth. I represented the dark feminine, and it acted out through me. I created a lot of messes, and then I felt bad because my human self was not fortified to where I could make sense of it or understand or support myself. So then I had to go back in and apologize and try and clean it up. And that almost made it worse. And there was this constant cycle of, what is this? Who is this? And then the imposters were the archons. And all of a sudden it's like, and one of the archons came in and said, we're part of creation too. I went into a 7-day breakdown where it shattered everything. It was literally like glass shattering. And then it was back to the story that people call a mythology was actually embedded in my field. The terror of an immature, spontaneous breakout of the pleroma, which is all that is, undifferentiated source, the creators, with outer syzygy, falling into a part of creation and giving birth, supposedly, to an accidental creation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if there are no accidents, but then the archons are that, and the Sophia keeps traveling, moving, leaving, has the love of humanity, and becomes the embodied expression of Gaia, some version of Earth. That's a whole different conversation. But Gaia
Mm.
Sophia, that's how she resolves the terror. Well, the archons are abandoned and they're left. And if there are no mistakes in creation, then all of us have a responsibility to look at that.
Yeah. And it's not like this is new information.
No.
I mean, you can, what is it, the Nag Hammadi, or the Dead Sea. I can't remember which one it is, but 25% of those docs that were recovered talk about the archons in the fourth dimension and the presentation of things they can't manifest, right? And so it's it's in us. This information's in us, and then also there's an incredible passage, and I shared it one time. I'd love to find it where it's from one of those two groups of texts, and it exactly what you said. It's a conversation. The archons are present, and there's a speaker representing whatever. I'm not really, but they talk about the role, and it's not a good versus evil kind of scenario. It's much deeper and much more expansive. So if that was written 400 years BC, then what the hell is before that? You know what I mean? Like, this is like some...
Well, it's primal codes of creation that have been hidden and kept secret. And what if it's time for all of it to come up and trigger what has to be alchemized within each of us?
Yes.
Because just calling out that name can create ripples, and people will receive it. For me, it's been challenging to disconnect that it's not my responsibility for triggering people and being responsible for how they react to it.
Right.
The maturity that's required is an inner, and the immature version will push off, react, make it wrong, project out, vomit their experience. And certainly there's a lot of platforms for that. But that's, but it's a visceral thing of, it's almost like somatically, we got to get it out. Well, what if we don't get it out? Because we're basically we're already renouncing its existence.
Yeah.
We're reneging. And the alchemy is like, okay, what if I can bring it in? And, that relationship with the archons was a long time. It wasn't like we had a howdy do festival and had a luau. It took quite a while for me to take out the programming and the conditioning and the dogma and get out of the right, wrong, good, bad, which is judgment. And judgment holds trauma.
Well, I mean, this is just okay. So like even what you're saying now, and this is like deep. I'm digging this. This is like gold. I mean, so this whole thing about expressing what we receive. Now, obviously, everything has a purpose and relevance, and like you said, so this might trigger me, and that might trigger, you know what I mean? And this is all good, but I think what you're saying, maybe it's the trajectory of where we're headed, or the direction, right? Is, if I understand you right, it's in the individual's transformation, and therefore the let's just say the expansion of their frequencies or elevation of their vibration, their signal, that does the work. You know what I mean? That's like the purest, most aligned part of it. And as soon as we open our mouth, and all other things, not all other things, but other things are brought into the dynamics of its makeup, and it becomes flawed or less aligned. So I get what you're saying.
Well, it's sort of like the word diluted can increase delusion.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at an alchemical, so if I've got a pure elixir and I keep adding stuff to it,
Mm-hmm.
it's no longer the purity of its expression. To me, that's sort of how this, for
Mm-hmm.
me, Earth sort of looked like a first cafeteria to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I carried very strong memories of other galaxies and other systems, always the war, the end times. So the memory of the Pleiadian Wars, which to me is I mean, you want to see that? That's Star Wars. That's the
Mm-hmm.
Pleiadian Wars. That's my perspective.
Yeah.
The Andromedan Wars. The one that really was heaviest in my heart is the Lyran Wars.
Mm.
And that's part of this electrical energy and electrical system in dominating through means that are not aligned with true creation. To me, if those codes are still floating and we're intersecting them, we have to become responsible for our own galactic history
Yeah,
and
I
the
see what you're saying.
codes that are within.
I see what you're
Because
saying.
otherwise it repeats. It's going to keep
Yeah.
repeating itself.
So it's almost like this. Let me see if I get you. So you know the old story about you got 10 people in a room, and I whisper into this person's ear a story, and then it goes around the room, and you're sitting next to me over here on the other end of it, and you tell me what you heard, and it's not even the same thing. So now you have 10 different misaligned, distorted narratives that are actually, for all intents and purposes, consciousness.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is, as a responsible, maturing soul, as we encounter these things, it's I guess maybe innate part of our service to Trinity energy or something, that we're aligning it, we're taking it on, we're not, you know what I mean, we're correct. I don't know how to explain it, but let me put it a different way. Do you feel that as we, as individuals and as monads and as groups or whatever, as we align ourselves, uh, to a finer degree, that we are also aligning this galactic history, such as the Anunnaki Pleiadian Wars?
Well, we're refining creation all the time.
Yeah.
So what if we step out of transmutation, transformation, transmutation, transcendence? What if we can get to the place where we're not processing, we step out of meaning, and we are transcending the expression?
Yes. And maybe that's where the new world, new species that you were talking about
Yeah.
comes in.
Yeah.
When we actually get over ourselves.
Well,
You got to have a little humor here.
oh, absolutely. I mean, I make fun of myself a lot, and I'm very humorous. And I've had a lot of junctures where I question my ability to pull it off. And I also had a lot of people come to me throughout varying ages. The first time I was 5 is I had an adult show up in my field and tell me they wanted to commit suicide. So I don't really get that I ever got to be a child, because the responsibility was so huge and adults were frightening to me and they lied. You know, it was very deceptive. And so to heal that level of programming of families aren't safe, humans are deceptive, they believe in a God. I got in trouble with my Sunday school teacher. I got in trouble. It's like at some point you stop engaging, you go along. And I heard myself at 5 as I was saying goodbye to my best friend Merlin and shutting down all the portals in my purple bedroom, that I was going to close it down for the sake of being able to exist in my family until I was 18. And I imagined that I could flip a magic light switch and come back online. It didn't happen that way. You know, all of that coding and encoding, and then academic, all these institutions were all there. And I came in with a lot of dogmatic, absolute programming in my field. I felt like a freight train, knowing that we were here to become light rail. I was never able to perceive that I was going to pull it off. For me, I got bound into a limbic loop of I'm here to do it for them, to open it up. It was a limbic, so overly selfless, which would entrain into sacrifice, suffering.
Which is what you said when you
Yeah.
started the show about.
Yep.
That's basically what you said. You were
Yeah.
overextending, overgiving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
therefore,
absolutely. And then where are the receptors for receiving? And if you know all of this dark history, I'm just going to call it dark, distorted history, do you wake up in the morning and go, woohoo, and do cartwheels across the floor? I mean, I've got my life force coming back now, and I'm so excited because at an age where everyone else is talking about retiring, I'm going to begin an entirely new life with a real foundation under my feet. And by the way, feet are important, not just for takeoffs and landings. I'm good with wings, but feet in the lower part of the body are essential for being able to walk the world and move in the world and be a true acupuncture needle. Because what if that's part of what we're here to be? We're all different.
Yeah, no doubt. There's no doubt that there's a serious argument for we're the mutts of the universe. We have more universal seed here than anywhere. And that could be a biased, belief system I have, but there's something innate to me that this is a very special point in time. I like just strictly because of the field of potential has, let's just say, a mass amount of points of context, or even just as big as possible to pull, because the more context you have, the bigger the field of information, and the bigger the potential of this new that you were talking about, and that we're all chasing.
Well, yeah, because so when we use the word new, my cosmic self and all of the aspects of me other than the human said, well, it's not new, it's always been there. We just haven't been vibrationally compatible and resonant. And also the planet is part of the solar system, is part of a galaxy, as part of the Lania Kea 150,000 galaxies. It's all moving. So what if we've hit a resonant juncture where potentialities, we are literally converging with the multiplicity of timelines of creation. And that would be the choice point, and the ability to what people call jump timelines. I don't know what they're talking about, and yet people say, well, you innately know how to do it. How do you know you innately know how to do that? If you don't trust your inner reality and build that GPS, you're going to be at the mercy of some outer force. So it's that eye of the storm, being a storm, and not identifying. For me, attachments were huge. Being attached to an outcome. 2012 for me was the biggest thing, and it turns out that my original soul agreement ended in 2012. I had someone tell me that.
Oh, you came for a second tour.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? It took me a long time. I was really angsty. And I was like this with the universe. It's like, I didn't agree to this. And it took a long time for me to find the part of me that actually did say yes to staying in what I agreed to.
Yeah.
And that fight, to me, that's the alchemy. The biggest opening happened when you stop fighting.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing how you let something go and it comes back like 100-fold? Like you never lose it. There's like this alchemic part, I don't know if it's a whole equation or part of the equation, but like when you totally let it go, it's like you said, it's not like it wasn't there. It's there plus more, but it's like to get to a point, I guess it's maybe an ultimate faith type of thing, or a step towards a higher faith. I mean, and words are, but I'm talking about the transitive verb faith, to trust, believe. Fascinating conversation.
And thank you so much.
Fascinating.
This has been such a gift.
Yeah, I've seen you out there. I was looking at your name. I was like, I know this person.
You see me out there? A few people have said that,
Well,
and then they
there,
laugh and they go, "Oh my God, she's in a body. I've seen her out there." But
right?
no, I'm just joking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent you. Um, Guy, you were saying something else too. I was just trying to remember. But I'd love because I really feel like it's not a choice in terms of this. The further I can go, so to speak, is contingent on how open I am to any and all things. And to think that there's a belief system / program of ascension of whatever, just whatever you want to use, uh, that we could actually transcend this experience if we get to a point of openness in terms of our, because you can't have, oh, there's infinite light but there's only limited darkness or something like that. It's got to be full blown to accept that anything we believe has to be considered as not being real, basically.
Well, what I because I've been talking like this for a long time, I had to cultivate using English
Hmm.
to explain realities that were non sequiturs to people.
Yeah.
I felt overly obligated, and it was exhausting, but it was the only way I knew how to engage, and communication was a huge piece.
Yeah.
I even would go to cafes and use condiments, and I would design diagrams. I would do diagrams and I would draw out on napkins. And I'm sure those napkins are flying around, and they'd be great blackmail material if anyone wants to use them. But I'm open now. It's just like, yeah, I was drawing a Stargate. It's like, where's my home? And I would draw it out. It's not cognitive. The danger to me is the concept. People get concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And the world of metaphysics in the New Age
Mm-hmm.
movement became a cage because they focused on concepts,
Yeah.
not on embodiment.
Yeah.
And had I not had my ass kicked by several different beings, and including a few humans that were brave enough to just call me out and help me to remember what was deeply hidden inside of me, the no matter what clause shifted, because I heard no matter what everywhere I went. I'd go meet and a shaman would find me and say, you have to be you no matter what. And after the fifth time, I heard it with a kahuna. It's like, do you all go to a convention and say, when you find this girl, just freak her out and go up and tap her on the shoulder and say, you have to be you no matter what? Well, don't we all? Don't we have to be?
To thine own self be true.
Yeah.
I am
Exactly.
soul and the human is the hero.
Exactly.
And that may not even, that may be transcended to it. And that's another thing. You wake up tomorrow and everything up to yesterday is in question. There's a new truth. There's a higher truth. I mean, it's amazing. So like you were saying a minute ago, I just want to cover this before we get out of here. But you were talking about, I can't remember how you put it, but basically when you were saying it, I could just picture like, you do this or you are susceptible to having your power taken, basically. And you were kind of talking like etherically, but as you were saying that, I was thinking, and here we go again. It's always right in front of our face, and maybe by the decisions and choices that we consciously make in an attempt to align with that you're speaking of, to thine own self be true, right? That how much more embodiment could you have than to honor yourself and respect yourself and love yourself enough to live in this this physical matter consciousness, this multi consciousness, and just create a nice flow, a nice, what did you say earlier? Relax into the body, and that would affect, because it is. I mean, we're just it seems like we're an expression, one powerful expression of our multidimensionality in a very dense physicality. So in other words, don't underestimate everything we do all day long. It could be saying hi to a little old lady, or it could be just these things have power, don't they?
Well, yeah, it's the relationship of spirit and matter, and it sounds so simple, and yet it was designed to be a complete paradox.
Yeah.
And the mind's never going to find, you can actually go Looney Tunes, another really technical term. You can bring yourself to the brink of
Yeah.
total mental insanity, looping in trying to make sense of it.
Yeah. I really agree with you. Now, I don't know that I could have embraced that as much 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago, even a year ago.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the characteristics of this evolution that we're all sharing is the dissipation of the cognitive, of the analyzation. You know, it's like shut the fuck up and just relax into it, like you said. Like relax. You were saying earlier in the beginning of the show, you know, you said da 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 da, and then you said, but it's you personally had to learn to relax into this vessel, right? Which contains, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not looking for validation, but this is it. This is everything. That Merlin that you saw and the one that I saw, and it's in here. You know, it's kind of like you lay down at night and go, okay, and you start talking like, who am I talking to? I'm talking to me, right? I mean, there's an element of that. I'm not saying this is all perfect, you know, but like you said, it's nonverbal. It's those wavelengths, those sounds, those colors, it's all that stuff. Do you oh God, this is weird having a conversation with you. How do you say, is it your belief that is there any, okay, let me ask you this way. What do you think is going on right now from Renee's standpoint? Like if you had, I'm not saying I'm going to hold you to it. I'm just saying, if you had to give us a general synopsis of this timeless space and spaceless time that we all share right now, what the fuck is going on? You know?
Well, that's interesting because there are like 20 different ways that I could bring that through one vocal chamber. So for me, it's sort of like I'm slowing down so I can actually organize the field to see what of those are they going to merge into some theme that is asking to be expressed. And in doing that, I'm reading the field. I've not read any of these comments because that would be distracting to me. And distractions have been a big thing. They're very scattering. It would pull me out of whatever center it is. And for me, it's being centered into my appropriate energy field, which is inclusive of Earth and everything. So what if it's inclusivity? Right now, we're being brought to a place of ultimate polarity, division, in order to make a new choice. Yeah. And for some of us, we've already been through this, and we're back to restore the original codes and undo the distortion.
Yeah, here. I serve 2 bags full. You know, I mean, and then at the same time, I think I heard you say this earlier. There is this convergence occurring.
Yes.
That as it, you know what I mean? It's that paradox. So there's this convergence that's bigger than you, bigger than me. It's just happening. You know what I mean?
It's huge.
Yeah.
And if you do, I mean, for me, it was like, I relate to myself as a nebula in a star system. So singing life into form was not a big deal until I went to Sunday school and they made me try and sing those Lutheran hymns. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck is that? And who sings these? They're out of tune. And why? And they're depressing. And it was like, and it, you know, and so at 5, I'm having a conversation with Big Blue, who is an angle, by the way. My friend Laura McConnell said, you know, Renee, it's interesting how much you're aware of, but you've never had permission to share it. She said, the angel, Michael, became a field because I was not attached to him looking a certain way. When I let go of the attachments, because I questioned the ridiculousness of the Roman gladiator outfit with the sword, it's just like, what's with that?
Yeah.
And in 1 second, this being changed. It was blue robes. And then it kept changing. And it was me changing it. He said, it's not me, it's you. You are perceiving me based on your reality screen, and it can change like
That's right.
this. And all of a sudden, it became this luminous bluish white angle. And I just put it aside. And again, Laura McConnell said, what if angels are angles of creation?
Well,
What if?
to have as many people, let's just take Archangel Michael, Mother Mary, and Yeshua, or it could be whatever, but there's something behind that. There, you know what I mean? Like there's something, I don't want to say foundational, but there's something about that. Like it's a consciousness. It's its own, right? I mean, and you know what? I guess at the end of the day,
but it doesn't have power. What's amazing is when I released the idea of having to be in a hierarchical reality, which I knew wasn't real.
Okay.
I had to then take permission and take responsibility for showing up as a more mature version of me than I was. And he still handed me that crazy sword and said, this is your sword, take it. And I had to stop arguing.
Yeah.
Now, this was in the 1990, and I'd taken myself into my own version of a medicine journey, which was I stopped eating, drinking, having regular sleep, and I went into a medicine space where I was between worlds. And I was rearranging my reality because I had some serious rage against God going on. Serious rage. And I didn't know how to express it. I didn't feel I was allowed to.
Was that, I don't mean to keep you over, I won't keep you much longer, but was that rage, I'm just curious, was that rage coming from the human aspect? Was it coming from something else? Okay. Something else, yeah.
Having the true feminine and the true masculine removed from creation was the source of my rage. The true feminine, the true masculine, and having to buy into this dualistic perspective with so little referencing to the union that is possible.
Yeah.
And the hierarchical construct that had people believing that you're going to take this multidimensional elevator and hit floor 7 and floor 9.
Yeah. See, that's, what's the difference? I mean, you got to ask the questions. And I know, sometimes they may not, it's not about, I want you to think what I'm thinking. I want to think. I love people that make me think. And that's a great gift for someone to put something out there that makes you think. But what's the difference between I'm going to heaven when I die, or I'm going to Nirvana, or I'm going to 5D? I have a feeling, and we can't understand it all, but it's right fucking here.
Well, yeah, it's a reality. I mean, you can actually shift that lens and be living in. Now, how do you access it? Through the human expression. Yeah. To me, that's the tricky bits.
I just meant yes, you're right. Yeah. But it is, that's it. But I mean,
but heaven
as a 5D, belief system,
new earth, to me, it creates a construct. And I run really, I'm a big runner, and I run really fast, and I'm learning not to run. I stand, I breathe, I connect into my appropriate connection to my field in earth, which means I don't ground. I have undone every single thing, not to make it wrong for others, but knowing that it wasn't resonant for me. Yeah. There was a different way of relating based on the multidimensionality that was asking to show up.
Yes. Yes.
So if I don't care about, I mean, to me, that story with Big Blue and finally being so exhausted, I stopped fighting and arguing with an angle of creation, that sword became a feather and I started sobbing. And at that point, Big Blue said, and what does that, what's significance? Not meaning. How is that significant? It touched the very core of my being. And it was like the first thing I said was freedom. This resonant field said, go deeper. And the word was and is still liberation, ultimate liberation.
Yeah.
And if I achieve that for self, it ripples and radiates out and affects the collective, the planet. It ripples.
Yeah. It's a frequency. It's the free energy of the universe. That's the way I look at it. Like it's not a word. It's not a. And we all experience it. I've experienced it, and this is only my truth to myself. I've watched it happen. I've seen it happen in 10 years at times with Soulogy. It could be a song. It could be a show. It could be, but you see it, and it's like a, to me, it's like a uninhibited, unimpeded. It's that motion you were talking about. I forget what word you used a minute ago. It with the fluidity. It's that part of it. And it just is, right? Like it's just like there's nothing stopping it. And it also brilliantly illuminates 360 in a multi-dimensional way, right?
It's a
you know
spiral.
what I mean? Yeah.
It's just a constant spiral
Yeah.
and spiraling, and you're spiraling and it's the connecting points. So when that spiral of creation is connected, the luminosity of light.
Luminosity. Yeah, I just watched Avatar twice after watching it with Morgan last year and tearing it to shreds. Like, that's bullshit. That's just how. But she had gotten a channel, or she just connected her. It's her. And she said, "Oh, I was told, maybe we need to watch this." And so I watched it, and immediately some things came. Like within the first 20 minutes, I'm like, oh. So that tells me what I've seen before, which is there's always the thread of truth in everything, no matter how it's presented or what the intentions behind it are. But there's that part where in the beginning, and he's with the feminine, and they go into, and she's starting to train him, or no, they're talking. She's going to kill him. And all these luminescent, beautiful jellyfish-looking creatures just come land on him. And I thought, that's it. And of course, I'm looking at this from my own eyes. I'm going, that's me right there. That's me. Because you can't, it's just, what is it? You don't know what it is. This is it, right? I mean, this is it. We're a big ball of light, basically.
Well, and can we dance with it without having to explain it? To me, explaining is the deepest rabbit hole that exists. The cognitive mind's not designed. It's not about understanding. The understanding comes in retrospective.
Yeah. Wow, that's
and
deep.
Notice how my voice shifted too. There was sort of like this resonance well of, yeah, exactly. It's just.
I thought you grew a beard for a second.
That was probably Merlin,
making
sure that,
he's right
there is a sense, I joke around a lot because, Todd, if people have to start where they start, then if they start with identifying with like a wizard named Merlin and he's out there, and eventually they recognize the wizardry is in here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to be the person that they come to support that. For me, it's about really being a support, an accelerator, a magnifier for those of us that are already creating the new paradigm, but we've been fractured along the way.
Yeah, and I think that, I feel like we've done a hell of a job. I feel like things are moving very quickly, and it's almost like the universe is reconnecting to itself. That's how I feel. I feel like, hey, let's just take the drudgery out of it, the work out of it, and just do that. Because like you said, the explaining, that energy that I was trying to describe that we are and that this is or whatever, that is an impediment. And in fact, everything at some point will become an impediment until we transcend it. You see, for instance, something like Morgan and I do not like the term twin flames. I mean, it's become not even one different connotation, but a multitude. But this could be applied to a lot of things that we like. I love you, or just so many different things. But yeah, fascinating conversation. I've had 3 powerful shows today. I thought I was going to die after the last one, but
well, and thanks for walking me through the tech part, because my nickname Magoo, I come by it.
Hey, I'm. It's funny because I talk to a lot of people, but yeah, I'm blessed to be have a bride that's an ET full blown, so I'm totally familiar with their lack of functionality on the human plane, right?
Yeah, and I'm very grateful to Soulogy as a platform, and to you, Todd, and to Morgan, because I reached out to Morgan because I sensed familiarity, and she did, I did do the short course of 0 pointing.
Oh yeah.
And then I tried to compare it to what I was doing, and I think that was a dangerous thing. And it's just like, well, if I'm getting to the end result, then does it matter what I call it?
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that. We were having a discussion last night. We were talking about it's a powerful modality. It's powerful, downloaded over a couple of years, but and I was telling her, I don't think you realize how much I've used it. Now, do I always use it in the exact fashion? Sometimes, but a lot of times it's the template. It's and this is with after a lot of work. I wouldn't recommend somebody just do it like that. But you're right. The bottom line is, if somebody gets there, and we're all going to get there, because who are we to think that we're better, that we're capable? This is our whole thing about, not staying in our own lane. Yeah. I mean, the first distraction we have, and really, I guess the last, is ourselves. If I think I need to go heal Renee, or I need to let her know I can help her, I'm not saying that not here to do that. I'm just saying it has to be that to thine own self be true, like you heard. What was it called? The clause? What was it? What was the clause? It's got to be this way clause, or something like that.
Oh yeah. See, yeah. The interesting thing is that I don't pull. I become such a conduit that I can't reference what was said.
Yeah.
The no matter what clause.
No matter what clause, yeah.
Yeah, the no matter what. Yeah. And I think
it's got to be this way no matter what. Okay.
Well, and what if the intensity of that? I mean, intensity is capacity. It has to have a channel to move through. And for me, it's multiple channels. Well, what if that is the multidimensionality through a lot of us? I lost a lot of friends. I have a lot of great support on the other side. For me, this moment in time is a breakthrough. I am, for the first time ever, having the support from other humans on this plane of reality. And that's friggin' huge.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things too. I mean, I don't know, like in the last week or so, I'd go, because you're in that space and there's so much going on. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go this route again. And I'm going to call, and I know I'm going to pull it from inside. And is it Merlin, or it's this or that? I need to have a discussion. I need to have a counsel. And so I put up, so to speak, put up a prayer. That's not the right way to put it, but, and I set my intentions or whatever. And what happened was, it came, but it came in human form. And then there was like that chuckle, you get that chuckle from the team, and they're like laughing at you. Like, oh, yeah. See, it's us.
Yeah.
It's us. I've told this story before. Last year we were in Florida, and we were, Morgan and I, every night. It's every night, hands together, and after one expansive period, I said, man, they're going to show up in the flesh now. We've seen them translucent. We've seen Merlin. We walked through the wall. All this dragons, they're going to show up, and we're going to be able to touch them. And she said, no. I think what's going to happen, Todd, is it's us. And that has proved to be very prophetic. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. Yeah, absolutely. What a fascinating discussion, and what a beautiful, brave, beloved sister we've been able to meet today. I look forward to collaborating with you again in the future if you're open to it.
Thank you. I'd love to.
Later in the year. And
sure.
Thank you so much for being so open and honest and raw, and dropping a few F-bombs that allowed me to do it. I used to do it a lot. I got in trouble. So anytime somebody
Yeah.
does, I can drop a couple. It feels better.
I try to keep it PG-13, but I don't
No, this is
always have
Soulogy.
it.
Everything goes. It's an all-inclusive tent. Whether that's what they used to tell me. Everyone's in it, whether you want to be or not. It's all points of all aspects. So yeah, I mean, this is great. So thank you for helping me land on my feet after a very there's been a lot of color today, a lot of different types of flavors in these 3 shows, and
Thank you for being willing to go just to go into the vastness. I really appreciate that possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, I don't know if I'm coming back on tonight. We don't have any shows scheduled. I've been working on some stuff. I don't want to talk about it, but I'll present it. I don't know. Maybe we'll jump on later. Maybe I can convince Morgan to.
That'd be beautiful.
She was in Gympie. You know where Gympie is?
I do.
She was in Gympie, went to go to the Gympie Pyramid a couple days ago.
Oh.
And some couple walked up to her and said, Morgan, we know you. We've been watching you and Todd for years, and you need to go on with them more.
Yeah. The energy between the 2 of you is just really inspiring. I mean, just, to me, you are, I'm going to use the term syzygies because it hasn't been
How do you spell that?
overused. Syzygy, SYGZ. Oh boy, hang on.
I'll figure it out.
Syzygy, SY.
I've never heard that word. SY.
ZYGY. There you go.
Okay.
I just have to find that part of my brain that knows how to spell.
Isn't that crazy? I have to find that part of my brain to figure out how to just do basic stuff,
Oh, me too. In fact, getting dressed can be a big deal in the morning.
Hey, no kidding, right? I thought I was losing my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I kind of think we are losing parts of our mind, and we're gaining.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I really do. There's a lot of positive, a lot of positive signs. Not that there's anything. It's almost like using the word healing, right? I mean, like you were saying earlier about another word. The more we use the word healing, the bigger the illusion grows, because there's nothing wrong, right? I mean, it's just a different language. It's a different math. And like you said, I think things they're just dropping away. Things that we probably thought we couldn't live without, or life isn't real without, but they're dropping away. Wow. Fried green tomatoes. She's going to watch that movie. Our friend Dawn up in Tennessee. It's a good movie.
Beautiful.
Well, you guys take it easy. We'll see
Thank
Renee
you.
again. We will coerce her into returning later this year. And just wish you all the best, and stand tall and keep on rocking, everybody. I love you, Renee.
Everyone.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
You too.
And it was a great conversation, all 3 of them today. So I want to thank everybody, and we'll see you around. Okay.